My settings aren't correct, but your background looks fabulous. I'm going to change mine really quick. How are you this morning? Hey, listeners and viewers, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here. This is a brand spanking new season. A brand spanking new season of the Sunflower Society podcast. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Justine, one of your hostesses. Kara's showing her lovely background she has. I'm in the midst of transitioning technology devices like computers fully. So I will be upping my game too, you can expect. And so if you're just listening, we do have a YouTube channel where we also load these episodes. And it's probably going to grow more and more fun for you to watch over there. So you'll want to go follow Spiritually Strategic Co., the Gonzalez sisters. But yeah, this is a brand new season. We've been on hiatus since really like the second week of October. We've taken a little break from really recording, and we've been
life.
Well, we've been creating a lot. We've been creating behind the scenes. I know I have certainly for one of my other companies, Educator Aid. But you and I have kind of been in this zone where, and if y'all listen, you know, we have some other projects that we've been working on, but we also, there was a heaviness with the election. Obviously, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. Just a lot of things going on. So we're like, you know, we were both legitimately have been really busy. So, but we're back and better than ever. And we're excited for a spicy new season of the Sunflower Society podcast. Like we were saying, we're the Gonzalez sisters. We're based in the Midwest, different areas, but we're both based in the Midwest. And our goal is really to embody that concept of a sunflower, that if even one of those thousands of seeds reproduces, it has the capacity to produce thousands more. So we hope that you always can take some nuggets of inspiration. Yes, we like to have fun. Yep, sometimes we're going to get a little spicy and sassy and real. But we hope, if anything, that you find within yourself how you want to share your gifts and your talents with the world. Anything to add, sister? I mean, it's a new
podcast
season.
over. Podcast
done. Over. So, hang on. I'm getting situated. Kara knows I like to sit on the floor on my little prayer mat, my little prayer pillow. So we want to start off with just where we kind of, honestly, we don't even have a name for this segment yet, but we want to look at some tweets, what's going on the gram, what's going on YouTube, and just kind of look at some trending things. I think it's really easy, especially in the pandemic, for each of us to go into our own little worlds and be like, I don't care what's relevant. I don't care what's out there. And I would argue, you tell me if I'm wrong because I'm not a parent yet, but I would argue, if for no other reason than to know what your kids are interested in, you got to keep up with what's culturally relevant. You can no longer just say, oh, well, I just don't get them about millennials or Gen Z or whatever. Sorry, Gen Xers and boomers, I'm kind of talking to you. What would you say, Kara?
No, I think that's completely relevant. I think that you have to, I have conversations with my kids about who they watch on YouTube, kind of, I don't know, the ethics of all these YouTubers making huge amounts of money, and who are they giving back to, who are you supporting with your views, that kind of stuff I think is important, because there's a lot of crap out there. There's also a lot of really good stuff out there. But I think for our kids, we try to have a close eye on what they're taking in and understand what it is that they're watching too. So I sit and watch it with them sometimes just to get a better idea of what's going on and what's trending for them. So I think it's important. I think there are a lot of kids that are allowed to just have free reign, but then you really don't know, how to talk to your kids about, in the way that they talk to each other, I guess. You don't know what they're talking about.
Right. So how can you know if it's something you want your kids exposed to, right? Because when they're still in your household, you want to have those guardrails and boundaries of what they're exposed to. structured boundaries, you know? So wiggle room to explore,
Yeah.
but also knowing, you know, what they're bringing in. So with no further ado then, do we want to, before we talk, do you want to talk a little bit about Dear Blabby, or should we, let's go into this YouTube video we wanted to show. Why don't we kick off with that? And then like,
Sounds good.
let me share my screen and just show a small clip. Because then you can explain maybe to viewers better than I could why you wanted to show this. So let's see.
Do 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 do. I can't. I can't see your screen.
Oh, can you hear it?
I can hear it. I can't see it. I can't see the video.
You have to push it on your camera, Kara, in order to see it. You'll have to swipe if you can't see my face.
Okay, it's showing up now.
It was crazy. I met these dudes at a party in Madison, Wisconsin, and they managed to actually be fans and recognize my voice when we talked because I hadn't revealed my face. I just met them, but like, yo, we're really good.
So
Wait.
okay.
Is that the clip? Is that the clip I sent?
Yeah, so there's like a full almost 8-minute video with him that was released through Fuse. I'm on the Fuse channel, and Fuse, if you guys don't know, is like MTV in Canada. It's a really large network in Canada. But I'm going to actually stop sharing here for a minute. What were we witnessing, and what's ASMR, and like why did you want to show that? Because he gets to a certain point where he's literally rubbing biscuits on the microphone.
That's the part I wanted everybody to see.
Well, let me. Why? Okay, why?
I don't know. Because it's a really, like, if you watch YouTube at all, it's a weird thing that I just discovered like a year or two ago. And it's like a sensory type of thing that some people enjoy and some people find really, really annoying. Like, some people find it super relaxing and some people find it very gross, like listening to somebody chew, because that's essentially what you're doing.
Can you guess what I'm thinking of that video?
What?
Well, I think I struggle to understand like what you're describing. Some people find it therapeutic, but then there's some videos you watch and you're like, yeah, but I also feel like they're trying to be super sensual.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a degree of that, but then there's also, I don't know, some people just find it super relaxing. I kind of go between, like, it's enticing to me because it's just interesting because it's weird, but it's also a little, like, I don't like the sound of whispering, and I also don't like the sound of
so his was not maybe a win with you, because
no, I thought his was hilarious because of the biscuits, rubbing the biscuits, you can hear it. And
well,
then
yeah,
also,
he's kind of, so I feel, so just to fill you all in, I feel like he is making a mockery a little bit.
Yeah, that's kind of why I like
fun of it. And so, yeah, and I've seen him interviewed on a couple other things too. So shout out, he was on Theo Vaughn. Theo, we love you. You're one of our inspirations. But what does ASMR stand for?
I don't remember.
I thought you were like an expert.
No, I'm not an expert. Something with sensory, I don't know. I have to look it up.
Well, so we're just really bantering and weighing in on the fact that if you do go on YouTube and you search ASMR, there are literally probably millions of videos where people are chewing, they're eating food. There's some people who, like, they're trying to stuff their faces intentionally. Like,
that's different. I feel like there's
different than ASMR. Isn't that all ASMR?
Well, yeah, but there's also like mukbangs too, where people just eat, but sometimes they use like a really sensitive microphone so you can hear all their chewing too. It's kind of, I don't know. I find
Do you ever have any
confusing.
Have a dry mouth and they're like,
no, I hate that.
I know. No. That's why I did it. Wait, okay. I looked it up. Hey, we don't have fancy producers and directors, so if we're looking something up, it's because we're looking it up. Okay. Autonomous sensory meridian response, ASMR. It's a tingling sensation that typically begins on the scalp and moves down the back of the neck and upper spine.
So like nails on a chalkboard
form of paresthesia. It's been compared with auditory tactile synesthesia and may overlap with frisson. I don't even know. Yeah. But what they describe with the tingling is like when, like, you know how everybody has different places where, like, I always used to feel that way when grandma would scratch our backs. So growing up, our grandma would scratch our backs, or like if you get a head, like on your head, if somebody scratches your scalp. And some people don't like that, right? Like some people, it's their feet, or they like to have their hands touched or massaged. But that's a really interesting concept to think about, that some people have those same sensations and they don't like to be touched, but they want to hear it and see it.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's like a very interesting concept, actually.
Well, I especially liked his because he was making fun of it, but also like he was also
he was like, sorry, I was pulling up our next thing.
He was pouring gravy. Like you could hear the gravy like.
Okay, that's a good segue to this next one. I'm going to pull up a TikTok I did very recently, and I think it was disgusting, but I did it. I did it because I'm like, well, clearly people are voting on it. I'll put it that way. I'm going to see if I can turn it to show it like on the camera here, because we couldn't, okay, I'm an old millennial. I couldn't get TikTok up on my laptop. I never log in on my laptop. All right, here's what it is.
Oh.
All right, so I made some homemade Alfredo and I had leftovers and I was scooping it up. And I'm like, this is exactly what people post. And so I put a poll on it, which is getting lots of responses. Not that I'm TikTok famous or anything, but 56% of people said they watch things again just because it's so gross. Like you can't help but watch it again. It's kind of like if you, okay, again, don't make fun of me, but you know how like if you would sniff a marker when you were younger and it smelled so terrible, but it was so terrible, then you'd sniff it again. Like, could it really smell that bad? It does. But that's why I asked the question. If something sounds and looks so gross, do you go back and watch it again? Like, oh, I can't believe that 56%.
Well, it's like
56% of people on my poll said yes.
It's like Dr. Pimple Popper and watching people pop pimples and blackheads and stuff.
But okay, with that, at least like for me, I do find that gratifying, like, okay, satisfying in a way, because you're seeing something released.
Yeah.
Whereas this, literally, it's just me taking a spoon and going, like making that sound with the pasta.
Yeah. No, I don't like that. But some people do.
But a lot of people like that video. Okay, moving on.
We've cracked the code into what people like, I guess.
I don't know about that, but moving on. Before we talk a little bit more about Dear Blabby, I'm going to show you all a very important post that was put out by a public figure, my co-host. I don't know if my screen is sharing. I think it is.
I don't see it yet.
Sorry if this is triggering some of you who are on Zoom all the time for work. Is my screen?
Why would it be triggering?
Can you see me?
Oh.
I can't hear you. I think you're mid.
Hey, Karen, turn off your microphone. Your dog is barking.
We can hear everything. Can you mute, please?
Did you hear about that one, the one public figure? I don't know if he's in politics. I think he's in politics, but he got caught on Zoom doing some trouser dances or something.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. How,
like, he's an old man too. I don't understand. So weird. I just can't fathom that.
2020 is bringing out people's true character.
He had like a big thing of like lotion sitting there. There's like
ew. Ugh. Okay. Yeah, it's still loading.
Yeah, I don't know. We can just move along.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, there it is. There I am.
Is. Hey, y'all, if you don't follow us on Instagram, Kara's at Fawn River Beauty. That's whose account we're on. And she's this lovely specimen with these two other fish here. And you can also follow me. I'm right there at Spiritually Strategic, if that's your thing. Okay, so you posted this 2 days ago. And it says, since social media seems to value image over deed and looks over logic, here's a super hot pic of yours truly, ripping lips and taking names. If you all don't fish or you're not familiar with the fishing lingo, that ripping lips is like, because, well, sorry, animal rights activists, it's when like a hook, like, hooks into a fish and okay, you get the idea. My little sis, Spiritually Strategic, that's me, and I will be recording a new episode of our podcast very soon after a season of rest and reflection. And one of the main topics we'll be discussing is the vapid nature of how we tend to interact in forms that could be used for healthy dialogue and philosophical inquiry, and how we've completely bastardized the concept of virtual community into platforms that value cat memes, basic quotes, and pretty pictures of, well, I don't know what else you said, but we're going to get into convo here anyways. And that's partly why we wanted to show that dichotomy. Like, this is literally something like the Young Gravy clip with him actually pouring biscuits and gravy. And he's kind of making fun of ASMR videos. However, those are some of the highest earners on YouTube. Those are some of the people who are really in that 1% of the world as far as even wealth. And so it just begs the question. I mean, he's gotten over 50,000 views on that through Fuse, and they just uploaded it yesterday. So let's get into it, sis.
Let's get into it.
We'll come back to our website later when the time is right. Why did you post that?
I'm mad. I'm a little bit irritable about I don't know. We've talked a lot, in this podcast. We've both done social sharing about this. And I'm going to preface all of this by saying I will probably say a lot of things that offend people today. And I'm just going to, this is going to be a session. We're going to model a session for you as far as how we debrief with each other, how we are honest with each other.
Let me light my incense.
Okay. Yeah. Get ready with your singing bowls. Just get them ready.
I only have one right now.
Oh, okay. Get the singing bowl ready.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just very, because a lot of stuff in our business has to do with social sharing. But there's a sense of frustration because Justine and I like to go deep with subjects that we talk about. We independently of one another, we tend to be very philosophical thinkers. We are very introspective people. And so when we interact on social media, it feels like we are sharing a piece of that with the world. Peace. Thank you. I needed that.
Sorry. We're sharing a piece of that with the world. Okay.
So I get frustrated. And I know that most people don't use their social media for business, so this might not resonate.
It's a different mentality.
Yeah. So I'm not on there sharing a lot about, even on my personal Facebook page, which is the like antiquity of social media for the most part. I don't share that much, and I never really have, about like family pictures or like actual private stuff that I want to keep private. But I tend to find that a lot of people do, and that is what resonates with other people. And I go through this battle with myself, like, do I let people into that part of my life? Because even though I'm sharing a lot of times from the heart, and I'm sharing a lot of like gut stuff or ugly stuff or like feeling stuff, which is part of myself, I also feel like it infringes on my family's privacy to be sharing. Like at this point, especially, my kids don't like to be in pictures on social media.
Right,
They don't even like the
right.
pictures taken at this point.
Right.
So like, I feel like I'm often in this, like, do I want to let people into that? Because to me, that's more sacred, to protect the privacy of myself and my family, more so than my emotions. You know what I mean? Like, my emotions for me have always been something that I'm happy to share with people. I've never had a problem being open and honest about the way I feel. That's just, I interact with the world through my feelings. So it's very
Because you're a
natural for me.
harmonizer.
Yeah, for the most part.
Well, that's, we'll get into that, listeners, viewers, because we are actually going to introduce you to, there are 6 core personality types, and it's really helpful to know what yours is or what you think yours is. But we'll get into that a little bit more. It's definitely a passion area of study for me in the psychology realm and communications. But why, I guess then, what makes you mad that, like, is it because people aren't reacting the way that you want them to react when you share something?
No,
Or-
I don't think so. I don't know what it is. Maybe because maybe for me, it feels like I'm putting energy and effort into something. And then but for a lot of things that I put zero thought into, like I literally say in that post, I have a picture that I posted on Instagram a few months ago, and I think it's got more views than anything I've ever posted before, or in more interaction as well, of me painting ketchup on a meatloaf for like 10 seconds. That's literally it. And that kind of breaks my heart and hurts my feelings a little bit, because I'm like, I get like people like what they like, but I also, I personally look for people who are like authentic and sharing authentically and from a deeper space than just kind of a surface level type way. I don't know. I get really confused because I sometimes just want to.
What if what you're saying is surface level, is that person doesn't think that what they're sharing is surface level?
Yeah, I totally understand, because it is hard. Like, it probably does take the same amount of, I don't know, like, not bravery really, but kind of, to share anything about yourself, because you're putting yourself out there in any way.
Right. And there are people who never they're on Instagram, or they'll watch my stories or your stories, or they'll DM us. But if you really look at their feeds, they don't really post.
You know what it is? I think that people tend to post things that they have no skin in the game. As in, they're not really risking anything to put themselves out there by posting a picture of a cat.
They're pulling a Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, listeners and viewers, we're saying that because I was saying that I do like to watch Joe Rogan's podcast sometimes, and Kara was like, I don't like him that much. and it was because of exactly what you're saying, which is you feel like he has all these incredible guests, he has this incredible platform, but he never just speaks and weighs in necessarily. Like, he basically ends up agreeing with pretty much any guest on his show, is what you've said, versus actually having to step out and say, no, this is actually what I think, which he does that with some things. Like, he's very open about the fact that he does psychedelics sometimes and like things like that, which, I mean, for where he lives, I think that that's actually pretty normal and acceptable. But
it's a weird thing to be very open about and then not be open about your actual opinions on things.
right
In
about
front
it.
of
Right.
I just
So
feel like there's
so basically you think that a lot of people live in this space where they're not willing to say what they really think about anything.
oh yeah. No, because I have always lived in that space up until recently when I'm very much trying not to live in that space.
Correct.
Trying to, depending on who I'm with, you know, I know if I'm with this group of people, I can't say or do this because they don't think that's okay. Or if I'm with this group of people, I sort of have to sit back and just watch because I can't participate in what's going on because of like how I feel about it. Or I don't know. I feel like there's a sense of me always trying to like be a chameleon and fit in whatever way. And I'm kind of tired of doing that. And I wish, I mean, I know, like, I know everybody's been in that situation or is in that situation. I envy the people who are completely free in themselves enough to do that without insecurity, because that's something that I think what it is for me is putting myself out there and then just having people not understand what I'm trying to say, or maybe it doesn't resonate in the same way that it resonates with me, just kind of makes me feel minimal sometimes in what I'm, and like, why do I continue to do that? But then I always go back to, well, because if certain people in history refused to share what they were actually thinking, we wouldn't have progress that we have today. And I guess that progress starts in small ways, in the way that you're interacting with people in your daily life, in your circle of influence.
But it also explains, Carol, why social media, especially for like boomers and older, their interactions are quite different because their communication style is different. I think all of it goes back to what's been acceptable for what's being communicated. You have to remember that even in that era, there was so much suppression, like whether it had to do with race or gender or religious views, that even if somebody was sharing their thought on something, you'd be lucky if you heard about it. Yeah. So you could have all these PhDs doing incredible research. Yeah, if you don't have access to university level education, which very few people did back in the heart of when boomers grew up, it wasn't necessarily the norm that people just went to college or university. So if you think about it, that's very jarring now, that now there's this ability to consume and take in all this information. Because back then it was, if you paid 5 cents for the paper to be delivered on Sundays, and then it's whatever happened to be published in that newspaper. If you think about it, how else would you have known what was going on except in your own little community?
Yeah.
Which explains then why people, especially in smaller, less progressive communities, it's hard when there's change. It's hard or weird if somebody's just speaking their mind.
Well, there's I felt recently too, like there is, even though there's no censorship really on any kind of social platform, and I'm only talking about social media right now because I do have these conversations in private too, like with people that I know and I'm, friends with and things like that. But I think social sharing right now, for me especially, has been a big way to learn what's going on and also keep in touch with people during a global pandemic. Like, I'm not a person that's going to go out and party with my friends, even though, I don't know. I think it's a good way for us to be keeping in touch with one another, and also maybe getting to a little bit deeper level than we normally would in day to day with people that we're acquaintances with and we run into every now and again, but we have an opportunity now to interact daily. And I find, though, especially in the area that I live, we are very conservative in this town and in this region in general. And I didn't have this experience coming from where we came from, which was only like 45 minutes away from where I live now, but we lived in a very diverse community, and we were in very diverse groups of friends. We had different exposures to different kinds of arts and things like that, just because we were in a little bit bigger town. And even 45 minutes from where we grew up and from where I went to college and all of these things, it's like a totally different culture. It's a totally, we're 50% Amish in my specific county. We have 50% of our population is Amish. That contributes largely to a lot of our culture, just staying kind of conservative. And also, like, I think the people that choose to settle here, including us, you know, we wanted
conservative as far as values. Let me clarify. We're not talking about politics. We are talking about values, cultural values. And just a little side note, if this is your first time listening, our father's Puerto Rican and our mother is Amish Mennonite background. So Kara's speaking about this. We're intimately aware of and knowledgeable about both the Amish and Mennonite communities. A lot of that community, actually, I would say all Amish people, they don't vote. It's not a thing that they don't do that. Our grandfather has never voted. I mean, so I'm just giving a disclaimer. You're talking about conservative cultural values.
Yeah, our grandfather was also a conscientious objector.
Right.
During the war. So he did service instead of going to the front line and fighting because he was a pacifist.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, I find that there's still a level of scrutiny and there's still a level of censorship. It's not like shut up or I'm going to come hurt you or anything like that, but it is very like shut your mouth, move along. If you don't agree with what I'm saying, you don't get to speak up because I didn't give you permission type of vibe. And I don't like when I put things out into the universe, I typically am fully prepared to own what I say. And so it's really weird for me to like I feel like I have to still censor myself to a degree, and especially having had some fallouts. Well, because just having had some fallouts and some conversations with people that, you know, have been in our friend circle for many, many, many years, and even some family members along the way that have tried to say, you know, you don't get to impose your viewpoint, you know, because I said this and this is what I said and this is what I meant. You can be going about it in the most innocent of ways.
You're just sharing your thoughts. You're not actually imposing anything or forcing anything. You're just sharing what you think. Right.
So I find that it's interesting in where I live, and I don't know if this is universal, just because it's funny because for many years I did censor myself in that way. And now that I'm not wanting to do that anymore and feeling like I shouldn't do that anymore, I feel like it's like sort of a backlash of sorts. I don't know. It's just, I have a very, very much of a love-hate relationship with sharing, but I was telling Justine this the other day, like, I don't know why, but I just have to, like, there's something inside of me that just makes me have to share certain things. And I have never had that in my worldview before. Like, I've never had that prompting before. So I'm going with it. I make sure that I stay in prayer and I like think about things before I put them out in the universe. I don't just get on and blast, and I don't just emotionally like post things. Like I really try to put a lot of thought and energy into it. Yeah, but I'm sure like many marginalized populations have had to go through this type of feeling for a long, long time. And I'm not trying to say that it's like a problem specific to me. I'm sure lots of people go through that, but it is what I guess it feels like to be pushed to the side and say, and have your belief like basically invalidated and dehumanized. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
I want to bring us back. Well, I want to bring us back to this because so if y'all don't know, we have released a couple courses, an ebook, just a few things, nothing major, for Spiritually Strategic Co. And the reason I want to hit on this is because I think Kara and I are getting a lot more clarity. Yes, we know it's only taken us a year. But this is also us being like transparent. It takes like I was joking with somebody the other day. I said, now after 3 years of being in business for Educator Aid, my other company, I'm just now able to like roll off my tongue exactly what it is I do. And part of, and I think it goes back to what you said at the opening of this conversation, which is, I think sometimes if you're not clear on really like your mission in life and how that aligns with how you show up every day and your goals and your passions, and also how you can make money, right? Doing those things that you love, so you don't feel like you're confined to some job that doesn't value you. I think that process takes time. And I don't know that enough people are honest about the time that it takes, especially in the influencer entrepreneur world, and especially when you're in service-based industries. So I do a lot of work, and yes, it would be easy to minimize it and go, yeah, it's about cultural competency. And that's really not the heart of everything that my company does, right? And that's why it took me a while to figure out, how do I communicate this? I finally felt like validated. One of my clients for the past 2 years was like, you know, I was and he won he's one of the high school principals of the year for the state of Indiana. And he said, I was telling one of my colleagues, like, you've been my coach for 2 years, and I still don't know how to explain what you do, but it's magical. And I'm like, okay, thanks. But that's the thing. I think when you're also operating your gifts, there is that sense of like, oh, wow, is this really work? Like, do I really get to do this? And I think that's where Kara and I are at. Like, we have been working a lot through different experiences we've been through. And we'll show you on our website some of our other stuff in a little bit. But one of those things that's come up for us is this passion for how do we better communicate with people. And that's why we talk openly about this. Like, Kara's not on here just bitching. Like, she's really processing through some things. And one of the things that we would like to offer in the future through Spiritually Strategic Co., and for people who are willing and ready to want to know more about themselves and how they show up in relationships, how they show up in the workplace, and become more effective. As a leader, as a wife, as a woman, as a mother, as a man, if you're listening, I don't care who you are. I would hope, like, I always think to myself when people say, wow, you've changed so much. I always want to say, I would hope so. I would hope I'm not the same person you met 10 years ago. Why would you want me to be the same person?
I think there's this level of doing it scared also. Like, I think we talked about this on a previous podcast.
Yeah, go back and listen to all of them.
I don't agree.
They're all good.
I don't always,
I said, yeah, go back, listen to all of them. They're all good.
I don't agree always when people pair that with hustling. Like, I don't necessarily agree with the whole hustle.
Like that, hard work equals more success.
Yeah. Because sometimes that hard work is just spent in spinning your wheels, and that's not helpful. Like 99% of the time. It's
also a very colonized way of thinking and programming. Yes. Specific to a lot of college institutions, that if I just work harder, I can slowly move up the ladder and be worth my value, which actually then carries over into relationships. Sorry, a little bit of a big philosophical idea, but to be fair, when you go into a partnership, for example, with somebody, and you say, well, we love each other unconditionally, how do you think that program is going to translate for real to the relationship if you keep working like a gerbil on a little wheel, and you think somehow that equates to success? Guess what you're going to do in your relationship? You're going to work to only please that person because you think somehow it's going to make them love you more.
Right.
That's not unconditional love. Okay, sorry.
That's codependency.
Yeah, at its finest. Sorry, yeah. But my little philosophical rant is over. Just a sidebar about how those are interconnected, because it actually is a really damaging thought that I lived with for years, that if I just work hard enough, then I can pay off debt. If I just work hard enough, then I can get promoted. And
I think for me, it wasn't about proving it to myself, because I always know kind of what I'm capable of. It's whether I'm willing to do it or not. But I always have this thing where I'm trying to please other people and be something for somebody, like other people. That's just part of who I have been.
Are you okay with us unpacking that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. But
So,
I did want to say,
yeah.
I don't like, as far as the do it scared mentality, I think there's some truth to that. And I think that's why I'm in discomfort right now, because there are like, I am putting myself out on a different limb, a little bit scarier limb in certain ways, to be talking about religion and politics and these like hardcore beliefs that most people will not have conversation about because it's too uncomfortable. And
but then
so
we
I have
stay
to remember
put.
that.
Then we stay stuck. And guess
No,
what?
I know.
Somebody does run into you 10 years later and you are still the same person.
Yeah.
I'm speaking to somebody right now who's listening. I know I am. And that's usually the bigger fear.
Yeah.
That's usually the bigger fear is, what will people really think of me?
And I told Justine the other day, like, this is really bothering me because I had a confrontation with somebody that's close to my husband.
Ooh, case study. I don't have a sound machine because we're not a big production, but
I had a confrontation of sorts, and I just felt like, because it was somebody that is in our friend circle, it just felt different than most kind of
meaning her,
me and my husband. Yeah. And I still want to maintain civility within my community and an open relationship with my community without putting myself too far a certain way to like ostracize people. But I have felt that I've done that just because I've felt like kind of a moral obligation to separate myself out from certain ideas that have been circulating around lately. Like, I have to separate myself out from evangelicalism, for instance. Like, I made it a point, as soon as I recognized something weird was going on with politics and nationalism and Christian evangelicalism, I made it a point to make a statement, and make many statements over the last month about it, because I don't want to be lumped in. Yes, I am still a Christian. I will always be a Christian because that's how I came to know God. That's the path that I learned about God. And that's cultural for me. But
well said, and I agree.
But I felt the need to have to separate myself out. And so separating myself out was very uncomfortable, but I felt necessary. I kind of feel like right now we're in a situation where like back in the 60s during MLK Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement and Malcolm X and all of the people that participated, they had an opportunity to make statements, and they did. And then there were those who were on the other side of things. And I guarantee you, the people that were on the other side of things during that era look back today and probably kick themselves, because they not only were on the other side of righteousness and love, they were taking sometimes a stance against righteousness and love. And so not only were they not speaking up, but sometimes they were speaking vocally against love. And I feel like we're kind of in that play today, like where we're on another brink of a big cultural shift within our society. And we're going to look back in 20, 30 years and be like, okay, yeah, these were the people. Like, do you want to be in that group of people who just sat there and were like, I'm not racist. I'm fine. I'm going to keep doing what I do. This is what my people believe, and I'm sticking to it, but I'm not racist. But then you never went beyond that. You never spoke on behalf of the marginalized. You never stood up when it was necessary and relevant for you to stand up in your circles. You never said what needed to be said, because you didn't, like, I cannot in my conscience look back on this time and be like, no, I shut my mouth, even though I knew deep down I had this fiery passion inside of me to share to the people in my circle of influence.
To be fair, some people don't do that on social media. They do it legitimately through their work, like school principals, right? And maybe they're not super active on social media. But to your point, you're just saying globally, if you have something in you, and certainly I know that happens in the workplace all the time. I will correct an error I just made. I actually said Joe Lewis and it should be John Lewis. Rest in peace. But that's also, again, it's also that it's a perfect example right now, because I could be like, oh no, I totally messed up a national treasure's name and I called him Joe instead of John and he's a black man and I'm going to be canceled and blah, blah, blah. That's how people are thinking right now. And they don't want to say anything. And I think it's been that way for years, that a lot of people feel that way and they're not okay to make mistakes publicly. They're not okay to say something and go, my bad, I totally said the wrong name, right? And I just did that literally on air. So I think to your point, yeah, I think that there is kind of this whole, I don't know if you want to call it a movement, but like a lot of people, period, at least in the United States, I can't speak for other countries because I haven't been abroad for about a year. But like there's, and other countries function very differently than the United States. So, and I don't mean that as good or bad, by the way, it's just different. I think to your point though, I don't know that there's that conviction there for some people. And are they wrong? Are they wrong for not feeling convicted?
I feel like in this scenario, yeah. Like I think that's why, here's the thing. I don't want to inflict or instill my values into somebody else's life. But at the same time, if I sit here and just sit within myself, there's no, like, if I'm experiencing growth, it's like if I planted a big garden. If I have an overabundance of stuff, I'm not just going to let it rot. I'm going to share it with other people, right?
Right.
So to me, and I would hope that other people, and I learn a lot by having mentors and people that I like pay attention to what they're saying, because I think what they're saying is important and it's a different viewpoint than I hold, or it's a new concept to me. I think that's important for our growth as humans. But I think I find that, yeah, I think people are very comfortable, and especially in the state that we're in, we're trying to protect our little bubble because we're in distress. We're experiencing trauma at some level. All of us are. And I think that it's kind of a self-protection, but I think also like you can choose a time of pain to catapult you into a season of growth, and let that leak over into your personal life and your friendships and your family relationships and all of those things. Or you can sink back into a state of, I'm safe and I'm like, I can't do anything. Like I'm just stagnant right now because I just can't put any more energy. I don't know that there's anything wrong with that, but I think that there are definitely people out there that should not be silencing other people, should not be silencing voices that are important. I'm not saying my voice is important, but there are definitely people out there that like are discouraging me specifically from saying what I want to say. Like, just to put that out there, like not threatening me or anything like that, but in a social way. Yeah. Like you're kind of saying, just like, shut up. You're not allowed to speak because it doesn't agree with my narrative and my dialogue. I think if there are people out there that are afraid of that, it's valid. Like if that's why they're not saying what they want to say, or talking to people and having those conversations, it's valid. It is real. But how do we flip the script to say at some point, like, this is unacceptable behavior. Like if you're doing this to other people and tone policing other people and what they want to say, it's just not like, but it's so acceptable right now. It's so acceptable to, especially if you're in a little microcosm or a little bubble within your own community, that most of everybody thinks the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure that happens in more progressive communities as well. Like if you're conservative in a progressive community, I would imagine it would be very difficult. So I don't know. I'm probably saying some offensive things or some things that might not sound like on par with what you think, but this is just, we wanted you guys to see this morning that sometimes we go through these little phases of like climbing to the next level. We're kind of taking baby steps here and baby steps there, but sometimes pain and discomfort enters in. And usually if we kind of can get through that and experience it fully, we can get to the next.
I've found that it means you're about to have a breakthrough. And I would also, just because I know more details about the case study with this particular interaction you had with one of your friends, like even looking at all those things, and I know you've been going through this for a while, I think it's honestly, it goes back to, is Kara willing to step away from people she's still connected to in kind of that who previously Kara was and okay with, and who Kara was okay with? And are you willing to really cut those ties? I think that's what it comes down to, because now you're attracting more people into your life that you're like, oh, okay, this person's real and like we could be friends. Well, those people are able to be attracted into your life now because you're in a different place. Right. So, and you maybe never would have thought of being friends with them before, you know, or like somebody who would, you know, DM you and go, hey, I love what you're posting. And maybe they don't feel comfortable posting it, but that's okay. It's still God aligning you with other people who are where you're at, you know, and where you're at in your walk is what I mean, not even geographically. So I want to go ahead.
The thing that's hard, real quick, the thing that's hard for me, I think, is that I'm still the same. Like, I don't feel like I'm a different person. I've just been able to show a different side of myself that I previously have not shown very, very many people, and been more open about that. Like, I don't want people to have the impression that, oh, I used to be this person and now all of a sudden, like, I've hidden a lot of myself for a lot of years because it's uncomfortable. Like, it's uncomfortable to be a weirdo. It's uncomfortable.
But it would be also easier. It was easier for you at different events or just different friend gatherings or whatever to just have a beer
in the background and watch.
Yeah, just have a beer and be in the corner, to be honest with you. I mean, you know what I like.
Totally. And that's not like, though. It's really not me.
Right. Which I've told you how I feel before. And, you know, I'll just go read a book or do whatever or play with your kids. But like, I'm not going to be bothered. Like, but that is different, right? When you still have people in your family, maybe who are trying to censor or things like that. Or you just get the impression that they're like thinking you're a heathen.
It's not even an impression at this point with some people. Like, some people have outright told me their views on how I think. And it's fine.
You've abandoned your religion and yeah. I think that's a
great, I mean, because they just can't fathom.
I think God is smiling. I think God smiles when people, oh, someone's at my door. Let me pause. Hang on.
Amazon?
Hang on. Keep talking. I'm just going to stop my video. I'm not going to stop recording. Oh, who is that? Who's that influencer? Just a minute. I'm sure they can hear me in here.